Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Babbles Nonsense podcast. In this episode today, I get to sit down with a good friend, Marlee Bruno, who used to work in the ER with me, but I have not seen or actually talked to her in years. We chat every now and then, but I just wanted her on this podcast because she is such a beautiful soul and she is so positive, and she's kind of just doing a little bit of everything. She's a kick-ass person, so I hope you love this interview. Let me know, guys. We're going to get started. All right. So everyone, welcome back to the newly reformatted podcast. Still kind of interviewing a business in a way, but it's not what you think. So I have my good friend Marlee Bruno here, who I actually haven't seen in years until now. So kind of weird, but it's almost like nothing's changed because we worked in the ER together and she was a PA when I was a nurse. Cool as hell girl. Only got to know little bits and pieces of you as we kind of opened up a little bit more to each other. Still never really dived in because you actually left before we got there. So that's what this podcast is kind of about, because you have went from a PA, for those who don't know, that's a physician's assistant, still a PA, always will be a PA, but that was your initial career. Now you're kind of going into this life coach. You do filler. Do you still work in the ER some?
No, not at all anymore.
Okay, so that's where you kind of are, but I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself to everyone because I don't want to do you any injustice about what you're doing in your career currently.
So you want to know what I'm doing currently?
Yes. Like what do you say that your current career, like what you're doing?
What do I call this? It's so funny because we're so used to like the identity, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know what this is called that I do. So I own a medical practice. Mind, Body, and Soul Medical is the name of my practice. That's in Pensacola, Florida. And I offer integrative medicine, very similar to like functional medicine or holistic medicine. So we blend ancient medicine with supplements and Western medicine. I still believe in Western medicine, but I also believe that it should be like a last resort.
Yeah.
So at that practice, I also do Botox and fillers, and we do medical weight loss and like microneedling and skincare and bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. So it's like a wellness aesthetics practice now.
And you called it Mind, Body, and Soul because you're working on everything. It's not just, come in and look good, but I want you to feel good mentally, because it doesn't matter what we look like on the outside. I think that I've learned that you're still going to have that like mental, like body dysmorphia. Like I still look bad no matter how good you tell me I look, and you keep coming in to tweak and tweak and tweak because mentally you're just not there.
That's it. So it's so funny because people have now started to call it the one-stop shop, because anyone who comes in there, like a lot of people will come in there specifically for Botox or microneedling or something, and then they're on the table. And I don't know if it's just the space or me being like an empath or what, but people just open up. And I'm super intuitive too. And so sometimes I can feel things about people. So it always ends up turning into like Botox with life coaching at the same time. You know?
But I mean, yeah, that's what we need.
Like, I don't know. What do you call it? And to me, the coaching part of it is real medicine, right? You know this from being a coach yourself, right? Do you identify as a coach? That's what you.
Yeah. I do nutrition coaching. I wish I could do life coaching because hell knows I need it. So.
But it's like the same, right? You're empowering people to be the best versions of themselves, but that's your niche, right? So my niche is mindset coaching then. Like, yes, I'm a life coach, but my favorite thing to do is mindset, because I believe that mindset is everything.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about before I hit record, was having a positive mindset. And that's something that I've always valued in you, is that you've always stayed positive no matter what you've been through. Like you went through some things that I didn't even know you were going through when you were working with me, with your ex-husband. And you stayed positive the whole entire time. You didn't speak negatively about anyone,
right.
Which is amazing. And that's something I kind of want to talk in, but I want to first go back and talk about your background. So obviously you were a physician's assistant in emergency medicine for years.
Yeah.
Is that something you always wanted to do when you were a child?
Yeah, definitely. When I was so my mom was a nurse. super badass. Can I say badass on this?
Oh yeah, this is I say the F word all the time.
Podcast, really.
Yeah, girl.
So my mom was a single mother and super badass intensive care unit nurse. So I always have been interested in and wanted to go into medicine. And my sister and I actually were like the ones that would like take care of the stray animals in the neighborhood and all, like, right. That's how they, like, you're supposed to know when you're a kid, like the things that you were the most interested in, loved the most as a kid is like probably aligned with your path or whatever, your purpose. Right. So yeah, I pretty much have always known that medicine in some capacity.
And so you decided to go the physician's assistant route. What made you decide physician's assistant instead of nursing since your mom was a nurse?
She told me to not be a nurse.
Well, there you go.
So it's funny because I always have respected nurses so very much. I think that is probably the most important job in any hospital setting or office setting, because they're like the liaison for the patient, right? Like the doctor says like all this gibberish that the patient doesn't understand, and the nurse goes in and basically like rewords everything and like takes excellent care of the patient and stuff. But my mom was always like, they do so much work for not enough money, basically.
True.
So she was like, don't do it. So, and I think it's probably, in my opinion, the most honorable profession that one can have. However, I don't know, I guess I wanted to be one of the ones that, I don't know, maybe not necessarily told other people what to do, but I don't know. I just wanted to be more in control than that.
Yeah.
But not have such liability as a physician has. And I was not going to go to school I knew I wanted to specialize in some way. I knew I wasn't going to do primary care. So I was not going to go to school for I think initially I wanted to be a plastic surgeon or like a neurosurgeon. Right. And so 13 years of school, because actually I've never, ever enjoyed school ever. So I still don't enjoy school. I like to pick the things that I want to learn and kind of self-study, but I don't like school in the formal setting of
agreed. 100% agreed.
Yeah. Don't tell me what I need to be doing. I just want to choose now.
So how many years were you actually working in the ER altogether?
I spent 10 years in emergency medicine.
Okay. Altogether. So this year will be my 10th year in emergency medicine.
Wow.
And so I'm kind of at that burnout mark, which they say about 10 years is your burnout mark. Cause it's not that I don't care about my patients, and I don't know how to word this exactly. But you get to the point where you're just like, I don't care what you're telling me. And it's not that I don't care. It's just, there's so much behind the scenes that people don't realize. Like you have to do all this charting, and then I have to tell 500 different people what you just told me. And then I have to go back and make sure I caught everything that I just ordered. By the way, I have 5 other patients to see. So it's not necessarily that I don't care about you. It's everything in general. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And the patient doesn't know, right? And that's also not the patient's fault. They're not supposed to know that.
Yeah.
And I agree with you completely. And from my friends, I have tons of friends that are still working in a hospital setting in corporate medicine somewhere, and it's not getting any better, right? Staff continues to decrease while the red tape and the amount of documentation that needs to be done and the paperwork increases.
Yep.
Right.
And the money doesn't increase.
Right. And the
money doesn't increase it. Yes. Despite where you live, the cost of living going up, the money doesn't increase.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, we all have to understand that hospitals are still businesses, and more people are using ERs as primary care, and they're not paying their bills. And so that would be essentially the same as me walking into Walmart, grabbing all my groceries and walking out for free. Eventually Walmart's going to shut down because they got to make a profit.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I get it. It sucks. I get it. Yeah, totally.
So when did you decide, okay, so maybe that's not the right question. So you've always been this free gypsy hippie soul, I would say. Is that how you would describe yourself?
Sure. Yep.
But in a way, you're kind of in this embodied punker rock, I'm a badass chick.
Yeah.
Kind of girl. Would you say that you've always believed in functional medicine, even though that you were working in Western medicine?
I didn't even know that it existed for the longest time.
Oh, really?
I didn't even know. So in PA school, we were exposed to a complementary alternative medicine course, which was 30 minutes, once a week for a semester. So it wasn't big during my education, right? It was one tiny little class. So, and now it's funny because that's mostly what I do now.
And it's funny because I have gotten into this whole nutrition thing because when I got diagnosed with my thyroid stuff and my autoimmune, I tried to go and figure out how I could fix this myself without going straight to medicine. And then I learned all this, like, food can heal you. And actually we can prevent a lot of things if we just avoided a lot of food. And I was like, oh my God, like, and that was kind of my breakthrough. And I don't know if the ER is becoming more of a, like, a moral compass. Like, if I believe in food treating you and you could actually prevent all these things, but then you come into the ER and you just want me to give you a pill to fix it. I don't know if that's where it's becoming a problem with me. Does that make sense?
Sure, totally. I could not. There was a period of time where I was working 3 days a week within my practice, and at the same time working the other three, another 3 days a week, so 1 day off, and 12-hour shifts, 3 days a week in the emergency department. And it got so not aligned with what I was doing that I had to step out completely without the promise of a paycheck or whatever. I just had to do it, which ended up obviously working out, which was good. So, but it was scary to do that, but I just could not do it anymore. Like my body, like I felt ill and I just couldn't. I don't know if that's what you're experiencing, but like physically ill because I felt like I was selling my soul for a paycheck. Ugh.
Yeah. It's almost like I go into work and I become so angry and I can't figure out why I'm angry. And then it's kind of projected onto someone just for saying hi to me. And I'm like, oh, why are they saying hi to me?
Right.
And so I'm kind of there where it's just like almost like I'm exhausted all the time. And then things like this, the podcast that I love and want to continue to do, because when I do it, actually I'm like so excited and I like it gives me energy, but then it also drains me at the same time because I'm doing it on my off days where it's like I just want to chill and do nothing.
I hear you. Yeah.
So when did you decide, like, I'm going to go into functional medicine? Like, when did that switch go off for you?
Gosh. Ooh. I think it was kind of slow occurring. So I would say, in 2018, I was reading the book Mind Over Medicine by Lissa Rankin. She's actually one of my mentors and teachers. It's an awesome book. I highly recommend it. So it talks about how the body has the capacity to heal itself when given the perfect environment to do so, right? And so this is obviously what you believe too, right?
Yeah.
Feed it the fuel that it needs and it'll heal, right? And so for me, think the thoughts and have the mindset and you can do, right? The body just does its job, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't think about healing a wound that you have. It just heals, right?
Yeah.
So clearly it can do that, right?
Yeah.
So, but she talked about, she had this program called the Whole Health Medicine Institute. And so I got super curious about that. Then it was like $8,000. And I was like, oh gosh, like, do I really want to, like, I have this $150,000 education and I'm still even now paying for that. that I don't even really use anymore. So it was hard to decide to come up with that chunk of change right then. But it was absolutely the best thing for me to do. And I did that. So, and I was in a room with like 25 other like physicians and PAs or whatever. And so I sit in the room and I'm like, guys, I think I'm a shaman. And like, I have these like intuitive downloads about my patients and like people come into the ER and I know that they have a pulmonary embolism, but I can't like explain how I know it, but I just like order the test and that's what it ends up being. Right. That's been like you do that?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's okay.
And people are always like, how do you know? And I'm just like, I just have this feeling.
Right. I've like fought with physicians because as a PA, we have to like kind of answer to the docs.
Yeah.
You know, I'm loud and you know, obnoxious, so they don't really bother me too much, but, you know, but like we have to explain sometimes why we're doing things. So for instance, I had a 21-year-old kid who came in with like coughing and, a little shortness of breath, whatever. And so the doc's like, I know it's an upper respiratory infection, blah, blah, whatever. I was like, no, dude, I have this feeling. I can't even explain it to you, but like, I got to do a CT on this kid's chest. He's like, you're kidding me. Like, you're nuts. And I was like, no, like, please, like, you know, I'm getting like anxiety that he's like going to discharge this kid. And so he's like, fine, do whatever, because they trust me. And then I did it. And sure enough, he had a pulmonary embolism. And he walked out of the room and he told the kid, Marlee saved your life because I was going to have you walk out of here.
Well, at least your doctor did that, because I have literally saved some docs' asses and they would have been like, well, okay.
Right. So it's supposed to be a team approach, right? Like, like if a nurse has ever come up to me and say like, I don't feel right about this, whatever, because why? I believe that you're born the thing that you're put here to do, right? This is like spiritual stuff, whatever, medicine.
But it's intuition at the end of the day. I mean, you have to, they say
right.
trust your gut, right? Like your gut's going to tell you what's going on. And I told this story. So like, this is totally off topic, but I told the story on a previous podcast that when my father died when I was 10, he died in a car crash, and I woke up at the exact time that his time of death was proclaimed. And my friend was spending the night. We were staying up watching Jerry Springer, thinking we were,
oh my gosh,
because we were 10 and we were sneaking up, and we
Jerry Springer at 10. That explains.
Yeah. So we were like, I was sat straight up in the bed and I was like, oh my gosh, did you hear that? And she was like, just go back to sleep. You didn't hear anything. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I went back to sleep. And then my mom called me into the room the next day and she was like, hey girls. And I said, Daddy died, didn't he? Straight thing out of my mouth. And she just kind of looked at me and she was like, yeah. Wow. And I was like, okay, walked out of the room.
Wow.
So like, I've always had this like weird intuition, kind of same thing. Like somebody walks in a room and I can't explain it to anyone because then people look at you like you're crazy. They're just like, whatever, you know? So yeah, like I've very much been interested in functional medicine. I just never been able to pull the trigger and do what you did, which I think is super brave. So speaking of mindset in functional medicine, obviously you do hormones and things like that. And I can only speak for me and use me as an example. But so say I'm your patient, because you know I have thyroid issues. I'm your patient and I come to you and I keep having these weird thyroid things. And now all my hormones are low too. What is your approach to the patient versus Western medicine, where someone's just going to say, well, here, take thyroid medicine, here, take hormone replacement? You're going to try to find the root cause, I would think.
100%. And I still do the Western medicine thing, right? Because the Western medicine thing is the easy thing. It's the quick thing, right? Not that Western medicine is easy to practice, but it's rote memorization things, right?
Yeah.
So if someone has a thyroid issue, you order these specific labs, and everybody knows, we all are taught what labs to order, right? And so, yes, I do that thing, right? And Western medicine is designed, I think, what is the average primary care visit now? Like 7 minutes. How in the hell can you go through someone's chronic medical issues? I mean, ideally they don't have any, but a lot of them do. And so, all their medications, all the 30 medications that they're taking, that 100% are going to interact with each other, right?
Yeah.
And then any new complaint in 7 minutes, let alone. Okay. And then so what I do, a step beyond that, because my visits are an hour long, is, so for instance, thyroid, right? So I'll feel if I have any, like I'll listen for any like downloads that I'm getting, or like any feelings that I have in my own body about the patient. And now I give a lot of thought to that, and I honor those things, and I honor that gift that is given to me to have that extra information, right? So if it's the sixth sense or whatever we want to call it, it is a thing that I absolutely do have. And I know that tons of my friends, so I'm sitting in this course that I was telling you about with 25 other, doctors, and they're like, oh, we all have that. And so everyone I talk to, when I talk openly about it, especially women in general, even if they're not in medicine, they have that. They can feel things about people. They can hear what people are thinking. They can feel things about people, like we need to be honoring that.
Well, that's just like all the moms and your mom now. Like you don't have to be looking at your kid. Cause I used to remember doing something behind my mom's back and my mom would be like, stop it.
Yeah.
And that's why they say moms have eyes in the back of their head.
Yeah,
like they would just know that you were doing something behind you.
That's so true. Very true. Very true. But so, and then I usually ask, like, when did that start? And then they'll tell me a time. Was anything else happening at that time in your life? Right. What I have noticed is, yes, thyroid problems are more prominent in females. They tend to be more prominent in people who have an issue being assertive and being able to tell their needs out loud. People pleaser people who don't want to rock the boat, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's in the throat area, right? So that's where your voice box is and all that stuff. So I always say, like, what are you not saying, right? Like, what do you feel like you need to say that you're not saying? Right.
And it's funny because I am that kind of person, but people listening at work would be like, no, you're not. You speak your mind all the time. Yes, at work, because I'm in a different role.
Right.
I'm not me when I'm a nurse practitioner. If that makes, like, I'm playing this facade, this role. Right. So yeah, I can assert myself at work, but when I'm outside of work, I have a really hard time telling people what I want. Like if I don't like something, because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And if I do hurt their feelings, then I apologize.
Right. Or even if you didn't, you apologize anyway, just in case.
Yes, I do all the time.
Because girls are, first of all, were raised by other women who were also raised to believe we are here to be polite and to listen, right? And we are good listeners for it. I'm really grateful for that. But we're not really given this, like, you are powerful, you are strong, unless we happen to have had a mom or grandmother or whatever that was strong and powerful, right?
Yeah.
But the boys get all that, like, right, lift weights, right? Be strong, be powerful, be courageous, right? Well, what about me? Like, here's me in this little body, like, I'm courageous too, you know? But I didn't feel confident enough to assert my courage until I was like 30 something, you know?
Yeah.
Which is why I was in that terrible relationship, you know? And so that's the kind of stuff that happens, you know? If you don't speak your truth, and you end up finding yourself, at some point you wake up and you're in this life that you didn't want. And that's what happened to me in the ER too. Like, how the hell did I get here? Like, it was so fun to begin with, but what has happened? And for years I've been miserable. So what am I still doing here? Right?
Yeah. So speaking of mindset and how you end up in a life, we're going to kind of go back a little bit on you, because my aunt tells me this all the time. She says it's the difference between pessimism and optimism, but I just say I'm realistic.
Okay. Realism, that's the thing. Yeah.
But how do you stay positive or get yourself out of these, like me, like being angry or being like, God, I hate everything. I hate me. I hate you. Like, I just hate life, because people look at me and they're like, what do you mean? Like, you have a good job, you have a house, but I am missing things that I have passed that I don't talk about, which is the point of the podcast, is to get what I'm not saying out, but it's still hard because it's scary. So how do you keep your mind? How do you stay positive when you're not first of all, I'm not a positive person.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think you're a positive person. Because here's the deal. Gosh, this is like life coaching 101, right? I'm about to blow some minds here. I fully believe so the ego is the mind, or the thoughts, right? You've heard this term, the ego. Okay. And then behind the ego and behind the thoughts is this entity, this thing that is the observer of the thoughts and the observer of the mind, right? Okay. We spend our whole lives living thinking that we are our egos or our identities, right? Yeah. When really what we are is human beings, or humans just being, right? So the part of us that gets all pissed off because we hate our jobs and all this stuff, this is the ego, right? And I think it's important to honor your feelings when you're having feelings, okay? And feelings come from the amygdala, that's the lizard brain. I don't know if you ever heard of that. Yeah. Right? And so they're normal to the human, right? And the ego also is normal to the human. The mind is normal to the human, right? Yeah. But they're not the human alone, right? Yeah. Yeah. So they make up the human. So how do I maintain a positive state? I call it like a positive state, which is, it's the place that I want to live out of, regardless of what's happening around me. Yeah. While still honoring my thoughts and my feelings. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, but it's hard to connect that. Yeah, but if you walk around thinking that you are this, you're only your identity, well, then you're going to get your butt hurt all the time, right? Because if I'm a PA and then I screw up in medicine or whatever, then I'm nobody. Right? Or if I'm a mom and my kid did something totally jacked up and like all the other moms are mad at me, then I'm a failure. Right? Yeah. But if I understand that I'm not just a mom and I'm not just a PA, I'm a person just being, right? And that's probably my biggest problem, is because I haven't figured out my identity yet. Because I keep feeling, and I've always said this to people, that I'm meant for something big. And some people laugh at me when I say that, but whatever. I feel like I'm meant for something big, and I haven't figured out what that big, quote unquote, big is yet. But I have this way with making people understand sometimes, like, for instance, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this. Who knows? Who's going to get you in trouble? Who is the authority over this? No one. Well, if I talk about work, I don't know what's see, real. That's one of the things, though. That's one of the things, right? That's one of the things that keeps you from speaking the truth. It is. Yeah. And so an issue at work is the nurse practitioners are underpaid, and the nurses are starting to make what the nurse practitioners are making. So I took it upon myself to email the VP of the hospital. Very professional email. Sure.
little did I know he was becoming the CEO the very next month later of the hospital.
Oh, even better.
And I got to meet with him, like called a meeting. We got to meet, got to talk.
Wonderful.
Obviously nothing came out of it, but I still got there, and people were like, well, how did you get there? And I was like, because I don't care if you're Jesus, Barack Obama, whoever, I'm still going to speak to you like a human, because why can't we have a conversation?
Mm-hmm.
At the core of it all, like you said, we're all humans. We should be able to speak to each other about our concerns. And the worst answer anyone can give you is no.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, and then of course I emailed him again, and now we're meeting again.
Good. It needs to be done.
But like things like that, I've always been able to do that. Like whenever I've had issues with physicians, I've been able to like attack it on and just be like, speak in their language and be like, why are you treating me as if I'm a nobody? And, I could make an example of where they can understand it. And I don't know. I don't know where, like, I never have been able to articulate what I'm feeling. And I just don't know. Like, I'm a nutrition coach. Yes. So that could be part of my identity, but then I also have, what's it called? Imposter syndrome with that. Like, I feel like I'm like, why would you listen to me for nutrition coaching?
Worst. The imposter syndrome is the worst, but here's the secret. Everyone has it, right?
Yeah.
Once upon a time, not too long ago, Donald Trump was, some could say, the most powerful man in the world, but he's got imposter syndrome. Bad.
Really?
Bad. Oh my gosh. Yeah, of course. But he's just a human, right? Everything that any other human is capable of doing or thinking or having, so is every other human.
Yeah.
Everything, right? So when you're trying to figure out your identity, it's like, well, I am this, but I'm also the opposite of that. Also, right? I am capable of being any of these things. So that's why I say, like, man, I don't know about getting caught. Like, what do I call this? It doesn't really have a name. It's just the best I can say is like, it's the medicine that Marlee brings to the world.
Yeah.
Right. And so you got the Jana medicine, right? And as a team, we'd be super kick ass, right?
Oh yeah. Maybe I should just move to Florida.
Well, but here's the deal. Do the Jana medicine in the ER and do the Jana medicine in the grocery store. You're not only a healer when you're at work, man. Yeah. I know you're not. I've seen you out and about. You're not only that. You're uplifting and encouraging and empowering no matter where you are and what you're doing. Because that's your job. Well, that's your job in the world, man. You're welcome. That's why, that's why you're put here. And some of us were put here to be whistleblowers, right? Yeah. And some of us were put here to be agents for change.
Yeah.
Right. For what we believe to be better. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do try to, not that anyone asked me to, but I speak up for a lot of people that don't speak up for themselves, who have told me things, and it gets me in a lot of trouble because I'm like, but they should change this for you. Like, it has, like, sometimes I insert myself into drama because I'm just like, not that I'm trying to like cause drama, but I'm like, but you have to speak up. And if you're not going to speak up for yourself, then I'm going to speak up for you. And they're like, no, don't do that.
Right. Yeah.
Which causes a lot of issues, but that's neither here nor there. So back to the mindset, because I got way off topic. So you're saying you could stay more positive if you just stop saying that you're this one identity. Like, I'm a nurse practitioner and that's all I am.
Correct. And so in life coaching, there's this thing, it's be, do, have. Okay. So especially in America, man, we are, do, have, be people, right? Mm-hmm. So we do things, we have a behavior. We think that we have to do things in order to have things, in order to be a way. So we have to go to school so that we can have a lot of money, so that we can be happy, right? And that's just not the freaking way it works, right? Everyone who's ever become anything will tell you, I mean, we're all something, but anyone who's got massive success and we all look at them like, how the hell they do that? Like, we're not there. They're doing the be, do, have, which is be in a state of happiness or whatever joy, peace, whatever you like, right? Whatever you want to be in that state, perform and behave and do things out of that state. And then you'll have things, right?
Well, yeah, because if you're happy and you're loving what you're doing, that's what they say. You'll never work a day in your life.
That's it.
Because
and it's the truth.
You would promote yourself because you love doing that.
That's it.
But my problem is I just give a lot of shit away for free. Like, when people are like, hey, Jonna, can you help me nutrition coach? I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, I would, and I'm really, I'm never going to be able to have a business because I want to help everyone because I wanted that help.
Right.
but I know that like at the end of the day, I can't do that. You can't give your shit away for free if you're trying to
That's right. The money still makes the world go round. As woke as we are, that's the way it is. And so it's okay to, you're touching on tons of coaching stuff. We should coach together. You can coach me and I can coach you.
Girl, yeah, I'm down.
Because I need the kind of coaching that you do too.
Tradesies.
Right, for sure. But if you're such a giver, then you must learn to receive, right?
Yeah, and I don't do that well either. Like I won't even open Christmas presents in front of people because it makes me nauseated to like open something that someone has given me. I'm like, why did you get me a present?
Yeah, and so why? Why is that?
I don't know. Because maybe I never got gifts. We were poor. So it's just weird. I'm like, why would you spend hard-earned money on me? But then I will drop $3,000 on a friend and not look back. But I spend $3,000. Oh yeah, if I'll spend $3,000 on myself and be like, oh my God, what did I do?
But you're not poor anymore.
Well, I kind of am.
No, but sometimes we get caught in that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're telling me, and I'm the same exact thing. I had so much money shit and so many limiting beliefs around money that as a business owner, you either get rid of those or you work through those really.
Yeah.
Or you won't make it, right? Or you'll never be where you want to be and where you project yourself to be if you can't unload that baggage, right? The rich kid is not worried about being poor because he doesn't even know what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
Well, we know what that looks like and we never want to be there again, right?
Exactly.
But we're not going to be either. And even if we were, we'd find something else to do because
that's true.
We're good at that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the mindset still at play here, would you say that you've always been more in the positive mindset, or did you go through some times? Cause I know, which we're kind of going to touch on how you went through your like divorce and stuff, but were you positive always? Or is that something you had to tell yourself, I've got to get out of this?
Yeah. So like my buddies will all like that have known me forever, or my family members or whatever, will always say that they have always felt like that about me. However, I believe that the reason for that is because I was so good at being like a chameleon, like, but so I call it spiritual bypassing or emotional bypassing, which is what can lead to a career in the emergency department. Okay. If you're an expert bypasser, you will wind up in the emergency.
Is that the same thing as codependency?
It's very similar. It's very, so, but if you're able to basically a traumatic or terrible bad thing happens and then you compartmentalize it, right? There's this box is all the people who died already by the time I'm 20, right? And this box is whatever other kinds of trauma that I've been through, right? And this box is like all my brothers have gone to jail and are like nuts, right? And this box is, right? And so, and by the time you dealt with a ton of trauma by a young age, you learn how to project yourself as this happy person, right? Because it becomes uncomfortable to share sadness. And like, I was always so triggered by people who, I don't know if you remember this, but like suicidal people and stuff like that. I'm like, how could you not want to live here and live? And how could you not want to be here? Only because I was so busy, like trying so hard to be positive, right? That I wouldn't dive into that. Right. Okay. I wouldn't dive into the sadness. I was really bad at grief. But it was like, so we call that a spiritual ego, where you're just pretending to be happy all the time. Right. And so the difference now is that I have opened all those boxes and I have walked through the grief in the being state of positivity, knowing like, because if you're like in the middle of trauma, like survival mode, right? Like with COVID and all that stuff, like people were like, a lot of life coaches were like, come up and be, just happy and whatever. Like the realist in you, I'm sure was like, we're all struggling here. Like the entire world is struggling right now.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Yeah. Right. So when you're in survival mode, it's not the time to like, woo, it's time to feel your feelings.
Yeah.
And curl up in the covers in the bed and just chill. Right.
Yeah.
But all the while knowing that you're going to be okay. Right. Because you're just a human having an experience. Right. And the experience you're having is sadness or grief or whatever at that time. Right.
Yeah.
It helps so much to walk through that stuff with someone who's like there are grief coaches, legit. Yeah. Right. But if you're in the middle of the trauma, you can't unload that stuff. right?
Yeah, agreed. And so
Yeah.
I heard something last night, and tell me if you think this is true. And it's funny that you say this. So I vent a lot, and I say that's my form of therapy, because if I get it out, then I'm not
That's
holding
it.
it in.
Yep.
But this person said venting is actually a form of avoidance, because when you vent, you are unloading your frustration onto someone else, but you're not actually dealing with it. You're just getting it out of you, but you're never dealing with it. So you're avoiding it, which never fixes the problem.
Right. So that is consistent with, I don't know if you've ever heard of the drama triangle. We talk about that in coaching.
Mm-mm.
The drama triangle, where like, I can't remember like the 3 different people in the triangle, but basically like one's the complainer and one is like the buddy that you run to complain, and the other guy's the bad guy. Right. There are much better words for this, but that's the layperson's way of saying it. So and so you're just gonna go bitch to the other guy, and if that guy's not on your team, you get mad, right? Or if they're like hyping you up, right? Yeah, I know, she's such a bitch, whatever. She shouldn't have done that to you, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And so it temporarily makes you feel good. But what you really need to be doing is going and talking to the guy that caused the problem, right? And you could have avoided that whole thing. Now, I will say it does feel good to vent. And I encourage venting, because you're allowing yourself to feel your feelings, because I'm such, again, an expert bypasser that if I vent, that means I'm actually feeling it, right? And allowing myself to feel it and go through it. So in coaching, I call that spring cleaning, right? Where we consciously sit, right? And I say, all right, come on, tell me all the things that make you angry about your job. And you just go, right? You go off everything. And then I'm like, okay, what else? And then you just keep going. Okay, what else? And then you just keep going, right? Because we're sitting consciously and on purpose, like, be as petty as you want doing that, right? And get it all out until you feel all free and clear. And then it's not in there anymore. And then you're like, ooh, I feel like I can go handle the problem now, right? But you're venting consciously and on purpose with the intent of just getting it out.
True. Right. And a lot of times when I do vent, like, I'll say something or go, oh, I see the problem here.
Right.
Because I said it out loud. I'm like,
thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Right.
So with all that being said, you said that you dealt with your trauma and you chose to be happy, but sometimes you were pretending to be happy.
Sure. For a long time. Yeah.
Do you think that I don't know, let me find my words here, but like, for me on the outside looking at you and thinking, oh, you're always so positive and you're always so, do you think that is kind of like a filter for Instagram, where it's like you're not really seeing the whole thing and it can kind of be jaded at times for other people?
1,000%. Okay. I was being abused in my marriage and no one knew.
No one knew. I did not know.
On purpose. But why? Because that's embarrassing to me.
Yeah.
So my identity, right, at the time was a super powerful, beautiful, very smart and courageous woman who's getting her ass whooped, right? So it's
because you were a badass, like, in everyone's eyes in the ER, you were, when we thought Marlee, we're like, Marlee's a badass.
But dude, I was so incredibly codependent, like, incredibly, right? Like, I fed that machine, right? I walked into that relationship knowing that's exactly what I didn't know at the time. I didn't know any of these terms. I know any of this shit, right? But now I can see in hindsight that I walked right into that and bulldozed all the red flags and kept on going, because it fed my ego at the time, which was, I just want to change you, right? I know that I am powerful enough and I'm important enough and I'm nice enough to show you niceness, right? But if someone doesn't want to see niceness, they don't want it, right?
And did you ever internalize that and say something's wrong with me? Or did you say,
oh my gosh, 1,000%.
Okay.
That's the only, right? But because why though? Because that's the survival mode for that ego, of the codependent part of you, right? Or of me, right? Is that if it's not me and it's the other person, then I have to leave. Right. Yeah. But as long as it's me, I can blame it on me and then I can stay because it was comfortable. Right. And where the hell does that come from? Well, if you're used to trauma, you continue to pick trauma until you wake up and don't pick it anymore. Right. How did I end up in a shitty marriage? That's why, because I was used to chaos and trauma and abuse. Right. And so how do you end up in practicing emergency medicine? Because you're used to trauma. You're used to fast pace. You can't slow down. You can't take a break. You won't sit down and eat a sandwich on your lunch break, right?
Yeah.
You put all over Facebook, I'm a badass and I saw 61 patients. I've done this. Okay. This is how I know. I saw 61 patients today, blah, blah, blah. Okay. What I should have been writing was, I am abusing myself on purpose and writing about it now. right?
Yep.
Because that's the truth.
Well, I was about to say, because I left the ER to go work at another hospital for a year, and it was boring, quote unquote.
I remember that. I remember, yeah.
Because I was like, and then I compared the ER to an abusive relationship because I said, you keep going back because you feel like you're missing something.
1,000%.
Because this job over here, even though it's not stressful,
yep,
people respect me. I'm making more money. It's too boring.
Right. I know. Right. And until you shine the flashlight on those parts of you that are incredibly detrimental to see and to find, you'll just keep picking that shit, man.
And maybe that's what's going on with me, is it's reflecting something in me that I just haven't figured out what the trigger is, because I keep thinking it's me and something's just wrong with me. But what made you wake up and turn on the light and say, why am I in it? Because y'all were married for a while and y'all dated for a while. So what made you just flip the switch and say, I'm done?
Oh, I got bashed in the face with a metal slinky.
Oh.
And well, so actually, and so that's not even like the end though, which is like, it's so hard to talk about, like the embarrassing things, but this is what needs to be talked about in the world right now. Right.
These are, I mean, they're hard conversations to have because they're real. They need to
be said, right? If I can stand here and say it, then other women who, I mean, it's an incredible amount of people, not even women, it's men too, right? It's an incredible amount of people who find themselves in these situations, right?
Well, because people think that they have, not to interrupt you, but you're beautiful, you have good money, you have a good job, you're smart, you're intelligent. People think, well, that can't happen to her because you know what I'm saying? Like people think it can only happen to you if you're not cute or not, or you're dumb or whatever.
Right. No, and it's incredible too, because it's so humbling to me, because I used to be the one that would say that stuff, right? Like, why don't they just leave, right? Why don't they just leave, right? I had the means to leave. I had money in my wallet. I had excellent credit. I had a car. I had no children, and I stayed anyway, right? So it's not the person, right? It's like you're asleep, and if you're asleep, you can't know better, right? It's not that person's fault that they're in it, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. So, and you can tell that person 100 times, and until they're ready, they're not going to do anything. So I feel like it was like legit an abrupt wake up call. It's funny that I can even laugh about it now. Like that's truly a funny thing for me to say now, which is
great.
Awesome. Yeah. So, but anyway, it was like because I got like smashed in the bridge of my nose, man. I was bleeding, and I remember walking into the back, and then he smashed my cell phone, so I couldn't call anybody. Right. But I had neighbors. Like I could have gone and said, this is happening in my home. Like, please help me, whatever. And then his mom came over the next day and was like, oh, it's not the worst thing in the world for someone to hit you. And I remember saying that is where you and I differ.
Yeah.
That is. And thank God that we differed in that way. Right. Thank God. Because maybe I would have stayed and taken that more. But I remember looking in the mirror that night and saying, I said to myself out loud, this is what you have allowed to happen. And this is where it is now. And you knew it was going there.
Yeah.
You knew it was going there. And if you don't do something now, it's going to get worse. And that's what I said. Right. And it's not. And again, like I also have sympathy or empathy for people who do abuse people. Right. Because hurt people.
Yeah. Because they haven't dealt with their trauma.
That's it, man.
Because there's a reason why they're doing that.
Yeah, that's right. And we're all just feeding the machine that's the ego. And
I mean, there's some rare cases where people literally just like chopping up bodies.
Right.
For the fun of it. But that's
right. Which I watch on TV all the time. So what does that mean about me? Right. Like, I'm like, this is so interesting. Right. Like, what the hell's wrong with me if I'm doing that? Right. But yeah, so that was an abrupt wake up call. Like that's going to be an abrupt wake up call if something like that happens. But I still stayed for months after that because it's like, you're scared. Right.
Yeah.
Of change. We're afraid of change. But the only thing we're put here to do is to change and change and change and change and change until we die.
Agreed.
That's the only thing that we're put here to do. Change, have new experience, unless you continue to try. We try our damnedest to have same experience. Unless it's safe, right? Like go on vacation, right?
Yep.
Some people are afraid to even get on an airplane.
Well, I'm not even afraid to get on an airplane. I'm afraid to go on. I'm afraid to go on vacation. I'm not afraid to get on the airplane.
Why are you afraid to go on vacation?
Because it gets me out of my, number one, I can't work out. I'm going to eat bad. I may gain weight. It's out of my comfort zone. Like I can't relax. I can't take a good shit.
So there you go. But Jonna, listen.
Yeah.
You literally, so I can't relax as a mindset.
Oh, I know. Like I can't even sleep past 4:30 in the morning because I can't sleep. Like I got a lot of shit.
We need a coach, man. For real. For real.
I'm dead ass because my aunt's already been like, if you don't get a therapist or something, we can't be friends.
So coaching and coaching is way more empowering. Therapy.
That's what I told her.
Because
she keeps trying to get me to go to therapy, and I was like, I've been to therapy. It's not working.
Right. Very good therapists know how to empower people. They do exist. And I think there's a time and a place for therapy. And I think that survival mode that I was talking about earlier is a very appropriate place to be in therapy and like sit in your shit with someone else. I think because having a long history of being a bypasser, so my sister was like always suicidal growing up. Right. So my sister has a history of heroin addiction. She's clean now. Thank God she's alive. Overdosed and died 3 times, but she's alive now. But I always was like, she was so sad all the time. I'm like, you're sad all the time. Like, right. And why couldn't I stand to see that? Because I was scared to death to be sad all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, she was brave. She was brave for actually expressing that. Right. Yeah. Now to stay in it is
that's why, and I would assume that's why she liked the heroin, because it made her happy.
Exactly. Well,
yeah, and she probably didn't want to feel sad because,
right.
And I can say this because not that I'm an alcoholic. And honestly, I've said this before. If I did not care so much about my health or weight, I probably would be an alcoholic because alcoholism runs in my family. And when I drink, I'm not socially awkward. I don't have social anxiety. I have energy to talk to people. So I enjoy drinking just for the fact that I don't feel like I want to sit on my couch and do nothing. But thank God that I care about something more, which is health. And I talked about this on another podcast, that in itself is an addiction because it does prevent me from doing things like sometimes I won't go have a social drink with friends because I'm like, well, I've already drank once this month, so no. And so it prevents me from so good and bad.
Yeah. So because it's an escape, right? It's an escape from the what's actually happening and the fucked upness that exists in general, and then within you, and then within your circle, or the world in general, right? Some people are so empathic that they feel stuff happening in like China. You know what I mean? Like some people really get messed up when like Mercury is retrograde, right? That shit is true. I'm one of those that gets like, oh my gosh, I feel this, right? I didn't even know. I'll look it up like clearly. And I think it gives, and I've never been one to move to like drugs or alcohol. Like I actually don't like the feeling of being altered. Actually, I act like a drunk person in real life.
No, I remember that you don't drink.
No, I mean, I'll have like a drink or something, but like I don't like. And I don't know if it's that I'm a control freak also, and I'll own that. I'm a control freak.
You don't like feeling like altered and out of control.
Right. Yeah. I just I smoked a little weed when I was like a teenager or something. And I was like, okay, where's the off button for this? Right. Like I'm done now. Like I have, like, cause I love new experiences. Right. So I'm like, I've had this experience and now I'm done with this experience.
But is it weird that when I drink, I feel more in control?
No, I don't think that's weird, but I think here's the deal. I think we all we're craving freedom.
Yeah.
We're craving that sense of feeling free because I think we know that's what we were born to be, man. We all came into the world totally naked, totally oblivious, right? And hopefully we leave the world that way. And but why can't we be, well, I don't know about naked, but I mean, I would be cool with it. But just why can't we live that way the whole time?
Agreed.
Right. And so we turn to these substances, and like for me, it's food, right? So we turn to these, or like working. I'm a workaholic.
Okay? Yeah, same.
Even still, right? But I'm working on it, right? You should have seen, my coach was like, I want you to spend 30 minutes today doing nothing. And I'm freaking out. I literally was like having a panic attack trying to relax. Isn't that something?
No, I can't meditate.
So
can't do it.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to make a post on this on Facebook, but everyone's like, oh, I suck at meditating. So meditating is not a place where you go to meet God and be all zen or whatever people think it is, right? To have the no thought zone. Because as soon as you recognize you're in the no thought zone, guess what? You're thinking, okay? Mm-hmm. Because we're human beings and we think, right? Mm-hmm. Meditating is sitting quietly with yourself and learning yourself, right? Because how do you want to pick these identities, but how do you know who you are if you don't take the time to sit and learn it?
True.
Right? It's in there, right?
Yeah.
They say life is not about picking up new things to do, right? And discovering yourself. Life is about letting go of all the shit that you picked up that's not aligned with who you are, right?
Agreed.
Like the money stuff, right? I'm not poor like my mom was, but even my mom really wasn't poor, right? But she hung on to that, and I did for a little bit too. And I'm hoping by the time my daughter gets to be my age, she has no worries about that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
This is so good. We only have about 10 minutes left, but I want to touch on the fillers a little bit.
Yes, do it.
Because I want to talk about how you snatch your face and get that Instagram face.
That's right, honey. Like, how are you so woo-woo medicine and all like super woke and also Botox, right?
Yeah.
Because it's me, man. I love beauty. I love vanity, right? It's normal in nature to be vain.
You're the first person who kind of told me about Botox because
really?
Because when you told me you have Botox, I was like, you have Botox? You don't even look like you have Botox. And you're like, yeah, I've been doing it. You were like, I've been doing this. And I was like, I'm going to go get some Botox.
Actually, I think I got it the first time when I was 24 because I did a rotation in plastic surgery. And so I learned how to inject there. And then I hadn't used it for forever. But then, all the girls there were doing it and all that stuff. But I love beauty and I love vanity. Like since I was a kid, I was like, I would buy those like fake nails and like paint them. Take the fake nail and like decorate them, right? Because it's a creative outlet for me to be to make over people's faces with fillers and stuff. And I love makeup and I always have. And I think that's natural. And I think that's really, really diving into your feminine energy to do that stuff. So I'm cool with it. Like I'm totally like, look at birds. Like they're, jazzed up. Usually it's the guy bird, the male bird, but it's normally occurring in nature to want to be vain, and it's evolutionarily advantageous. Right? I'm using all these giant words. You guys,
I love it. Because I'm over here like
I'm such a nerd. But it's advantageous because the more attractive mate gets the chick or whatever, then they get to procreate, which is why we're all here as far as evolution goes, right? So I think it's really important if you enjoy that kind of thing to go ahead and be it, man. If it aligns with you to feel pretty and do those things, do them, right?
Agreed.
And don't care about who else has to say about it, right? Because you know what? If people are making fun of people for getting Botox and stuff, and they got some shit around vanity, right?
Well, I was about to say, like, I had the hardest time for the longest time to tell people I had lip filler because people made fun of me. Like when I was in Nashville, living in Nashville, everybody was doing it. It wasn't a big deal. But then when I moved back to Huntsville, everyone's like, oh my God, you got your lips done. And I was like, I've had them done.
Right.
Like, I have the smallest lips and they make me feel better about myself.
That's it, man. Lips there's not much that'll make you feel more confident as a woman than lip filler.
So, but is that something that you kind of, and that's another thing, like that if I lived in Florida and I could come to you for injections, obviously there would be a coaching behind that. Cause I'd be like, well, what if I don't tell nobody? Because number one, more and more people are telling and talking about it, which number one, I just said never. Obviously you want to give a shout out to your person who injected you to make you look so, because people were like, your lips look so good. And I'm like, oh, well, they're fake. What? And you're like, well, yeah, this person did them. They look, and you want to give a shout out to the person who did them too. Like for your business.
Right.
But then it's like, if you're over here scared of it, oh no, they're real, they're natural. Then it's giving this unrealistic beauty goals, kind of like the Kardashians who will not admit that they had a BBL and their ass is not real.
Right.
Like you're giving unrealistic expectations that, oh, my 2 workouts a day did this.
Right.
And I don't want to be that person anymore.
Exactly. We should all, that's the thing, we're craving freedom. So we should all be doing what we like to do and what we're prepared to do, right? Like it sounds crazy that I'm like, oh, I was put on the earth to help other people, women mostly, but people to feel beautiful and also have them be conscious or encourage them to be conscious of their thoughts and their choices and decisions, and also practice medicine. Like what?
Because that's not being done a lot.
Right.
You're doing kind of like you said, a one-stop shop, and people may find that weird, but I think it's amazing.
Right. But there are people that come that they're not interested. They're not into the fillers and the Botox and stuff. And I don't even like address it, man. Like if they don't want that, then they don't want that. And that's totally cool. Yeah. Right. And if they want to come just get Botox and they don't want any coaching or anything, then that's totally cool too. I don't even know that I've ever experienced that because I think that now I'm becoming like known as like life coach. So like people start like crying on the microneedling table, but it's wonderful. Like it's wonderful that people are starting to feel safe enough to open up about shit, right? Why are we so unhealthy? Because we all just keep that stuff in, right? Meanwhile, we're all experiencing all the same shit.
Agreed. And I mean, number one, we're always talking about being short on time. So if I can come and get some lip filler or a micro needling session with my life coaching, hell yeah, bring it.
That's it. That's right. It's so, and I think that because you guys can't see me, but I have like a sleeve tattoo and I'm all tatted up and I have piercings and I have a septum ring and I have fake eyelashes and fake nails, right? And well, actually they're my real nails, but I do the dip polish, okay? And I have filler and all that stuff. And I'm such a nice person. I'm so vulnerable now. I was so scared to be vulnerable. Like it was like the most detrimental thing ever to ever like open up. I used to wear like motorcycle jackets and like.
That's what I'm saying. You were more this punk rock in this gypsy hippie like body.
Right. I was always so nice, but I've had several, like I would call them spiritual awakenings. I guess that's like people describe these things happening to them. But I've had like one time I felt like my heart busted open and I like saw this green energy coming out of my heart. It's so funny talking about this out loud because it's so normal now. But like 2 years ago, I've been like, oh my God, I'm never telling anybody this ever. Anyway, so that, and I literally felt like something that was like covering or blocking my heart, like busted open. Like, this is who you're supposed to be. Just surrender to it. And I literally said, I surrendered. I put my arms open like that. And it just like poured out. Right. It was like, I'm giving up, right? Like in the ER, like I'm giving up, right? Yeah. I cannot feed this machine anymore.
Yep.
And then another time I had a lady that gave me like this Reiki massage or something. I didn't know what the hell Reiki was at that point. Right. But she's like telling me all this stuff and she's talking all this weird at the time to me, like about feminine energy and how like the world is becoming more comfortable expressing feminine energy and emotions and feelings and blah, blah, whatever. And I'm like, okay, lady, whatever, just here's your tip. And then I was literally at the red light on the way home and I like felt like my head busted open. But it didn't, of course, but just like I felt this like almost like a pop, not like an aneurysm pop, but like pop. And I felt like I had all this like, it's like I was like living in a little box and like my brain opened up and it's like, oh, but there are 10 million more possibilities than I ever thought there were.
Agreed.
And here's what they are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so like different times, little things like that happen. Yeah. And you're not scared anymore to like learn who you are and be who you are outwardly. Like I was so scared when I opened my practice even to be who I am, right? Like people, especially like, you know who my favorite clients are right now? 78-year-old women who come in. They don't even know what the hell they're coming in there for. They just heard that they should come there. And I'm like a breath of fresh air to these older ladies who would ordinarily take one look at me and be like,
and judge you.
Right. And they'd be like, clearly your mom didn't give you enough attention, which may be true. Right. But
they would judge you thinking that you were this drugged up, tatted up, alcoholic, just because of the way you look.
Right. Yeah. But after 10 minutes of me being incredibly authentic and just being who I am and inviting them to be that way also, they literally come sit in my waiting room and they don't even have anything booked that day. They just want to sit in that space.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I love it. I think it's great. And oh my gosh, could you imagine if everyone felt comfortable enough to open up and be that? Man.
I know the world wouldn't be able to handle it.
That's it. Right.
So before we end this, I want you to, I stole this from the Skinny Confidential, pimp yourself out where people can find you.
Oh girl. What is on
and tell everyone about your book. Cause I feel so ashamed that I have not read it before we did this, but I did order it and I'm going to read it. So tell everyone where they can find you, your book they can read if they want to know more about you.
For sure. You're going to laugh when you read it because everyone says it sounds like it's like in my voice, right? It sounds like I'm reading, like when you read it in your head, it's like I'm talking to you, which is great. It's called Master of Pieces. You can get it on Amazon. I wrote it in 2017 and it kind of left off there. So daily people are harassing me, telling me to write another book. So that works. So look out for that. And then also on Instagram, I'm not really like, I know you put Marlee.Bruno on Instagram. I really am not active on that page, but my other handle, is that what you call my handle? Yeah. I'm old, y'all. I'm 36 years old. I don't know.
You're not old.
I cannot get Instagram. I'm like a Facebooker. I don't understand.
I love Instagram.
I'm like a MySpace person.
No, just transform and you'll hate Facebook. I promise.
Really?
Yes, okay. Because most people are.
I don't want to be doing any of it, to be honest. But
most people are on Instagram, and if you're in your stories, it makes people feel like they know you.
Okay, so the stories really matter.
Yes.
Good to know. I'm getting marketing advice here. Good. So Mind, Body, Soul Medical Inc. is my handle on Instagram. Mind, Body, and Soul Medical on Facebook. You can find me. Where else? Google is Mind, Body, and Soul Medical. Y'all can email me. It's marlee.bruno@gmail.com. I love coaching people. I take one-on-one clients. I do 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month programs for coaching because I want it to be goal-based. So I don't really do hourly coaching. Follow me on Facebook, just Marlee Bruno, because I give a ton of free content. And I'm like, that's the thing, Jonna, man, don't be worried about charging for your services, because how much free content do you give away? Right?
A lot. Yeah.
Thing, right. Like, I know that we feel out of alignment when we're like charging people money. Oh my gosh. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But like today, don't listen. Earmuffs, Jonna. Earmuffs. I went through Whataburger today. Have you ever had Whataburger? Oh my gosh, do they have
No.
this there? Oh, it's amazing. Anyway, don't have it. It's bad for you. But I went through there, and like, people aren't working in these fast food joints right now, right? So the girl at the window, I was like, "Here's $10. You know, like, thank you for being here right now."
Yeah.
You know, and it made me feel so good to give her money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it probably makes people feel good to give us money.
Maybe.
Yeah. And so why are we robbing people of that, right? Like, how good do you feel when you give somebody a gift?
Very good.
Wonderful. I'm like, oh, I'm proud of myself that I picked this out, right?
Yeah.
Special little pretty bag, and I put this tissue paper in here. It's got glue on it, you know, and like, they're gonna love it, and then they do love it, and they're like, yes, it's amazing, right? And so when we can't receive, we rob people of that. So learn how to receive money. It's essential. It's a survival skill to learn how to accept and receive money. Where else can you find? Is that, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will put it definitely in the show notes that people can just click and get to you easier. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time, because I know you're super busy and you took the time out of your day to do this with me. And until next time, guys, bye.
Thanks, Jonna.